It's been a long time since I've talked about this. I spent a lot of time, or most of my life, being a policeman, 35 years, and 20 years ago, when this happened, people didn't believe me. I got some family members who don't want to talk about it. It's been said and done, it's over. Forget about it. But Clay was a part of our history. Yes, Clay was evil at times. But yet I still love him, you know. It looked like police officers behind every tree in the woods. I mean, they were just, gun barrels were pointed at Clay. If he starts moving that rifle towards any of those officers, they're gonna unload on him. And they're just gonna fill him full of holes. And then I'm gonna watch my brother die. I felt like I'm the one that has to try to do something to stop him. But this expression on his face and those eyes just told me volumes that my little brother, is evil. On July the 7th, 1965, my father died in a plane crash. And on that day, my grandfather held my hands in his hands and he goes, "Walt, you're the man of the family. You're it. You don't have a daddy now. Your brothers don't have a daddy. You're the oldest. You gotta take care of them." He just ingrained in me I was supposed to look after my mother and my younger brothers. And from that time on, I just kind of tried to do what he said. My stepfather, he married my mother 4 or 5 years after my real father died. And Clay was the joy of our lives when he was first born. That's the little brother. He's about 3 years old. Probably one of the most beautiful children you'll ever see in your life, in my opinion. Just didn't have a mean bone in his body. I was about 13 when he was born. Me being the oldest, I would, take care of Clay. If he needed to be fed, I'd feed him. If he needed a diaper change, I'd change him. And I was glad to do it. I wanted to do it. I just loved that kid. I really did. Clay had a hard time in school. He just couldn't control his temper at times. And one time, he got his nose broke in a fight, and Mom said she was starting to worry about him. She would ask me to go talk to him.
Hey, Clay.
I was working as a police officer, and I guess Mom looked at me as I could be an authority figure for him.
Mom was worried about you.
Somebody's got to take care of him.
Can't do that, Clay. You gotta walk away. As hard as it is.
I said, "Well, Clay, I can understand 1 or 2 fights at school a year, but this is an ongoing thing, and Mom's getting tired of it. She don't know what to do with you."
Sometimes you just gotta be the bigger man and walk away.
And he said, "I'm not gonna take any much crap." And I said, "Clay, getting in trouble like this is not gonna get you anywhere. And it's only gonna cause you more problems, But there was very little reaction.
You got to promise me you're not gonna let this kind of thing happen again.
I knew he was a little more aggressive than most kids once he lost his temper, but I didn't think it'd turn into what it did. He never did very well in school, but he started doing even worse. And he came home drunk 1 or 2 times that I remember, and he went from alcohol to marijuana. I wasn't living at home, but I came home to visit. Mom went home, I walked in the house, and I immediately just smelled dope in the house. And Clay and one of his friends was sitting on the living room couch, just high as a kite. And he had over an ounce bag of pot on the coffee table. He had the same symptoms as people I used to arrest.
What the hell is this?
The hell's it look like?
He didn't show respect to anyone, and Clay could never see the consequences of his actions. So I thought, it's time for him to get a little lesson. So I called the sheriff's office and tell him, hey, he's got a couple of ounces on him. I want you to come out here and arrest him.
Come on, Walt. We're just having a little fun.
He said, man, Walt, you don't have to send me to jail, man. Why do you want to do that? I said, your butt needs to go to jail. That's where you need to be. I was trying to scare him away from his evil activities. His buddy was scared, but Clay he sat there, just kind of gave me the evil look. You couldn't scare him with anything. You couldn't threaten him with taking him to jail or taking something away from him. Just didn't care. He just didn't. That was his attitude. Well, they never showed up. I called them twice. Never showed up. So I just took the dope and I flushed it down the toilet. And, I saw Clay as the way a lot of my friends were back at that age, the way that I was. I thought he was just one of the many that rebels. At first, Roy seemed to be a pretty good guy. Mom seemed to love him, but he just started getting a little meaner. Probably one of the worst nights I remember, I was at the house. All of a sudden, I heard my mother and Roy screaming and hollering at each other upstairs. When I walked into the bedroom to see what was going on,
What's going on?
Roy was on one side of the bed, and Mom was on the other side of the room crying.
Time to go. Relax.
She said, he hit me, Walt, he hit me. Get him out, get him out.
Relax. Relax. Time to go.
Clay was across the hallway in his bedroom, and he heard every bit of it. I just glanced at him as we were walking past, and he was just standing there, he had these big blue eyes, and they were filled with tears. I didn't say anything to him, he didn't say anything to me, but he was becoming more angry. At our house, we had a gun cabinet. It wasn't locked, we didn't have any doors on it. It was just a box where you could just lay your rifle or shotgun in. I came home one day to my mother's house, and Clay was in a rage and crying at the same time. And he grabbed a shotgun, and he started loading it. And this is summertime. There's no hunting in the summertime.
Clay, what are you doing?
I'm gonna kill him.
But he was determined to shoot Roy.
Come on, let's put that gun down. Look at me. Don't, Clay.
What?
So I grabbed the shotgun from him, and he was pulling on the gun, trying to get away from me so he could go shoot his daddy.
Give me the gun. I'm gonna shoot him.
He was pulling on the gun with me, trying to get away from me so he could go shoot his daddy. I finally jerked it out of his hands. I grabbed him by the collar and we just went outside and we talked. But he was in a rage. I couldn't settle him down to talk to him.
I'm gonna kill him.
What are you thinking?
I'm gonna kill him.
I said, Clay, you don't want to do that. Your dad and I have had our problems, you know. I said, but you don't want to do that. And yeah, I do. I want to kill him.
You gotta look at me, man. Actions have consequences, brother. Come on.
If he had been physically big enough and strong enough to overpower me, I think he would have shot somebody. After his dad left Mom, he just was so withdrawn. He just wasn't the kid that he was prior to that. I remember one time I go home and no one's home. And I find a drawing tablet and I just thumbing through it. And there were these satanic drawings. Pentagrams and Satan lives, you know, I love Lucifer, that kind of stuff. And that's not right. In my mind, you know, that's evil. That's the contrast of God. Our mother came home. I said, have you seen this? She said, no, not really. I just assumed it was schoolwork. And I said, look at this. She was stunned. I mean, she was aghast. She said, I had no idea this was in here.
Hey!
When Clay came in the house, he could tell by the way Mom and I were looking at him that something was wrong. And when he realized that I saw his drawings, I mean, he just wanted to come at me. Those are mine. What are you doing? That's my stuff. You have no right to my stuff. And he's just going off.
No! Stop it!
I said, Clay, what are you thinking? This is our mother's house. She doesn't approve of it. I don't approve of it. We're not going to have it. And I just ripped him up.
No, please stop!
He blew up again, you know, I don't mess with your stuff. Stay out of my stuff. And that was really probably one of the major turning points. After that day, Clay didn't really like me at all. Where Mom lived, we hunted on her property quite a bit. And not too far from her house, I was walking down this trail and I saw the remains of a dog. In the entrails of the dog, like the intestines, it looked like they were spread out over in a kind of a circular diagram. There were some marks drawn in the dirt and some formations made out of rocks. I ran to the house and I said, Mom, I said, somebody's dog is on your property over there. And I said, looks like somebody gutted it. Clay chuckled. I said, I turned to him and said, you know something about this? He said, yeah, he's with Satan now. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Walt. He said, I don't believe that Jesus stuff anymore. He said, it's Lucifer. He's Satan. He's the man. And then Clay admitted he and a couple of his buddies sacrificed a dog for Satan. And he said he did it more than once. He said he's killed other animals. He loved to hang cats and just watch them squirm till they died. Thought he was nuts. I didn't want to believe him, And we grew up with animals, dogs, cats, ducks. He never exhibited anything like that before. He loved animals. Pictures like this that remind me that he did like animals, that he was affectionate towards animals. He never showed any animosity or anger or anything towards an animal that I ever saw. Mom got Clay to go to church with her one time, and it took. He grabbed a hold of it. And from the time he was 16 till he was 22, he was all about Jesus. He knew the Bible by verse better than I did. This was when he was serving Jesus. He was a godly young man at this time. And it just took a burden off of us. Now we knew that he was going to bigger and better things. This is what we wanted him to become for the rest of his life,
What is
Boy, stop it!
He was looking dead at me, and it happened like that. And I knew that in order for me to stop him, I was going to have to hit him.
Boy, stop it! No!
This is my little brother, Clay. He was 22 years old right here. His eyes look dull, like there's nothing in them. This is when he was going back to his old self. He didn't talk about church as much. He didn't talk about Satan, but he didn't talk about Jesus either. And he would just have a sustained anger.
There you go, Mama.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I wish I could come by more often.
I remember I went to visit Mom, and we were just talking. I happened to look over to my left, and there was a brand new guitar on a guitar stand in the living room.
This is nice. Is this Clay's?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I went and picked the guitar up, and I was just strumming the guitar, just playing a few chords. And I heard the Clay's door just slam open. And he came just strutting out down the hallway of the house.
Put that down.
And Clay grabs the neck of the guitar, tries to jerk away from, get in my guitar. He rears back like he's fixing to punch me. And before I even realized it, I just smacked him upside the head. And when I hit him harder than what I intended to.
Clay? Clay, are you okay, honey?
Clay, come here, man.
And I said, Clay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have hit you like that. And he said, okay. He said, just forget it. And he grabbed the guitar and he took it into his room and locked the door. I knocked on his bedroom door.
Clay, come on, man.
I said, Clay, I'm sorry. Would you come out here and talk to me? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And no answer. He just had his door locked. He didn't want to talk to me at all. Several years after, he said, I've got something I need to tell you. He said, you remember the time we had the fight over the guitar and you hit me? He said, you remember when I didn't answer the door, when you knocked on the door and I didn't want to talk to you? I said, yeah, I remember it well. He said, well, the devil, Lucifer, told me to load my shotgun and come out there and shoot and kill you and Mom.
Come on, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you that hard.
And the only reason I didn't is because Jesus himself was telling the devil he's not going to do it. I said, are you serious? He said, well, I'm dead serious. Satan told me to kill you and Mom. And I loaded my shotgun. I was going to go out there and shoot you and Mom.
Do it. I have to do it.
He was struggling with good or evil. And good won that day. He stole some things from a neighbor, and my mother asked me if I could go to court with him. He was found guilty of the charges, and the judge asked me, what do I recommend?
Your Honor, he needs to take responsibility for his actions.
Immediately, without hesitation, said, I think Clay needs the maximum. And the reason for that was because I thought there was still hope for Clay. If the penalty was severe enough, if he could feel the consequences of his actions, it might straighten him out. It might knock some of the hardness off of him. Clay was standing to my left, and I could see my peripheral vision. He turned and he gave me that evil look. He hated me at that moment. I mean, he absolutely just couldn't stand the sight of me. The judge, he didn't give him the maximum. He gave him a fine, restitution, but he didn't do any jail time. When Clay and I left the courtroom, he just had rage all in him. I could just see it and feel it. He said, Walt, I want to tell you something. I just love to break into somebody's house and just tiptoe around there and just watch people sleeping. Just to know that I can kill them anytime I want to. Just to know that I can walk out of here, out of this room, and either leaving them alive or leaving them dead. I said, did you hurt anybody? Did you kill him? He said, no, I didn't hurt anybody. He said, but it just, man, just to know that you can.
It's just for the thrill of it.
I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't tell our mother that. To have your younger brother actually talk about what he could do to somebody, I didn't want to believe that he really would. And I took him back to our mother's house. And after that, we didn't talk for a long time. Misty was probably 20 years old. She was just a nice girl, you know, and she seemed very sweet, very honest, very innocent. But their relationship it became volatile. The police went over to Clay and Misty's home several times to see where he'd slapped her or beat her or threatened her or did something he wasn't supposed to. I knew what his temper was, but I didn't think Clay could kill anybody. I didn't want to believe it.
Hello?
One day, my mother called and said that, Walt, I need to talk to you about Clay.
Calm down.
And my first statement was, well, what's he done now?
I think he might have actually killed somebody.
Mom said Clay told her that he may have killed Misty. 28th, 1998, I got a phone call from our mother.
Mom, calm down.
Walt, I need to talk to you about Clay. I heard fear in her voice for the first time in a long time.
What's he done?
And she said, Clay told me that he thinks he's done something real bad, but he's not sure.
I just don't know how to help him.
And she said, he came to my home. I noticed he was all scratched up.
Clay, what's wrong?
He had scratches all over his face and arms. And she said, he told her, I want $1,500 so I can go to Mexico. He kept repeating it, I think I've done something bad. I think I've killed a bunch of people. I said, do you believe him? She said, I don't know. But when I refused to give him some money, he was very angry and he left. I thought, this is some kind of a embellishment. Clay maybe he hit somebody and they're in the hospital, and I thought it was anything but murder.
All right, Mom, I'm gonna get down to the bottom of this.
I'm a policeman. I carry a pistol wherever I go. And if Clay is on a killing rampage, and if he points a gun at me, there's a good chance I'm going to shoot back. I need to find out any more information that might be available. So I called the local sheriff's office.
It's Walt.
I said, Sheriff, I'm Walt Chavis. I'm Clay Smith's brother.
I gotta talk to you about my brother Clay.
He said, where are you at? And when he asked that question, I knew in my heart, in my soul, there was something to this, that he probably did kill somebody. He didn't say a word. I just followed him into his office.
Have a seat.
He handed me a stack of papers about 2 inches thick.
Have a look.
And I saw 5 warrants for capital murder on my brother. And I'm looking at the names. I didn't know who they were. I didn't even recognize Misty's name. I saw her name in black and white, but it didn't register to me who she was at that time. I wasn't coping with what I was just given readily. I said, you think he killed 5 people? They are absolutely positively sure he did.
Starting with the same counties, coroner's report, same patterns.
He said, we're gonna go looking for him. He said, I have a question for you. Are you willing to help us find your little brother? And I thought, my little brother murdered all these people. I said, my God in heaven. And I said, yes, I will help you any way I can.
Thank you.
When we arrived, 6 or 8 officers at one time started hollering on the radio. He's running, he's running, he's running. He's got a gun, he's got a gun. When I heard the word gun over the radio, I thought, man, they're gonna kill him. I could see deputies jumping out the cars. They're running, they're hitting the woods. They're all carrying weapons, shotguns, rifles, pistols. It was panic. The deputy that I was riding with, he said, you don't go anywhere, you stay right here. 20 minutes felt like hours. I heard a lot of shouting. I couldn't make out what it was. I just knew someone was gonna get shot or killed. When I heard over the radio, is his brother still with you? And he said, yes. He said, bring him here. I saw my little brother standing in a little clearing.
Don't come closer to me. Hey, I see you over there. Don't move. Don't you move.
It looked like police officers behind every tree in the woods. I mean, they were just, gun barrels were pointed at Clay.
Hey, stay there.
He had a rifle in his hand. I knew if he starts moving that rifle towards any of those officers, they're gonna unload on him. They're just gonna fill him full of holes. And then I'm gonna watch my brother die. I felt like I'm the one that has to try to do something to stop him.
Clay?
I got within about 20 feet of him. And he said, "Walt, what the hell are you doing here?" Like it was a joyous reunion.
Hey, Walt, how you doing?
Hey, Clay, how you doing, man? Hey.
I said, "Clay, you tell me what you're doing here." And he just gave out the biggest roaringest laugh I've ever heard in my life. He said, "Walt, don't you know? I sent 3 to heaven and 2 to hell." I said, "Clay, you don't have the authority to send anybody to heaven or to hell." I said, "What can I do to make you put that gun down?" He said, "Nothing. I'm willing to die. Are you willing to die, Walt?"
Come on, Clay. It's just you and me here talking, all right?
I don't have the words. I don't have the vocabulary to explain it to you. I've looked into the eyes of a lot of criminals in my time, and this expression on his face and those eyes just told me volumes that my little brother, is evil.
Clay, come on.
I started talking to him just about stuff, just, members of our family. I said, "What do you think Mom's gonna think?"
Break her heart.
"What about Misty?" When I said that, his head just kind of dropped. He kind of gestured that just kind of hit home. And he relaxed a little bit. He went from this to this. I thought, okay, I'll be able to walk up to him, and just take the gun from him, or he'll hand it to me, and it'll be over. And as he was lowering the gun, boom! A shot rang out, and it hit him right in here, right below his shoulder, and it spun him around. I was the closest one to him, and I ran over there to him, and from the bicep to the tricep, best part of his arm was gone. They had an ambulance on standby, and they put him on the gurney. And I heard the medics saying, "Well, this is bad. This is bad." I just couldn't comprehend. Is this really happening? Is this really happening? Am I really here? Did I just see my little brother get shot? That's one of the bodies. Had something that I wish I could forget for the rest of my life. I've seen hundreds and maybe a couple of thousand deaths, but the crime scenes that I've worked in the past as a police officer, I didn't have any feeling for it, or very little. I was trying to do a job. Nothing like this. This is personal. This is the first time in 20 years I've seen their pictures. This is Misty. This is Samantha. She was the babysitter. And this is Shelley, the mother of these 2 children. This was Sean. This was Taylor. How can anybody want to hurt children like that? I don't know. Do they look like they can hurt somebody? Do they look like you would have to defend yourself against them? You know, why he wanted to do that, I don't know. I would gladly give my life, bring those people back. I don't know what to say to the victims' families. I really don't, other than I'm sorry. Clay never admitted to killing them. But I'll try to go see him at least once a month or more.
How's Mom?
She's all right.
One day we were talking and he said, Walt, do you think I deserve to die? And I asked him, I said, did you kill him? Did you kill all those people? And he looked down and he never would say anything. And I said, Clay, I said, my belief is whoever killed them, whoever shot them, I believe that person needs to die. Love Clay. Loved him as much as I've ever loved anybody in my life. But he deserved to die. This is me and Clay. This is the last time I saw Clay. This is the day before he was executed. I got a smile on my face because this is the first time in 2 years I got to hug him. There wasn't as much crying as I thought there might be. We spent about 2-3 hours with him, talked about the good things in life. He said, Walt, he said, I love you. I want to thank you for everything you did for me growing up. Anyway, he just said, take care of Mama. I said, okay. The day of his execution was just my pastor and myself on Clay's side. Prison officials gave the formal statement. On this day, May the 8th, 2001, Clay King Smith was pronounced dead at 9:03 p.m. The victims' friends and family, they were hooping and hollering, yay, and we're glad the bastard's dead now, and stuff like that. And my pastor just put his arm around me and prayed for me. He said, well, let's go now. You don't need to listen to any more of this. So we left and drove to my mother's home. And when I stepped in the door, Mama knew it was over. It was just a bad night, just a hard night. After all this happened with Clay, it softened me. It really did. I was a policeman for 20 more years after that. When I used to take someone to jail, I treated them more human, I guess, instead of just a number who violated or committed a criminal act. It's made me more compassionate, made me a little more understanding, but that badge is just getting heavy. For me, it's just a weight that I don't want to carry anymore. And I'm going to leave law enforcement knowing that I can honestly say I did the best that I could.
It began with the sound of sprinklers, a quiet suburban morning in the heart of California, sunlight spilling across trimmed lawns and pastel houses. On that morning, July 14th, 1994, everything appeared normal until the first scream cut through the stillness. Neighbors said it didn't sound human. It was short-sharp and stopped too quickly, swallowed by the hum of traffic and the buzz of cicadas. But for one family on Maple Drive, that sound marked the last time they would ever see 22-year-old Emily Harper alive. Emily was the girl everyone knew, college student, part-time barista bright smile that lit up the small coastal town of Clearwater. She was supposed to start her senior year at San Diego State that fall. She never made it. Her car was found abandoned just 3 blocks from home door, unlocked keys still in the ignition. Her purse was inside untouched, no sign of a struggle, no blood, no footprints. It was as if she had simply stepped out of the world. Detectives combed the area for days, canvassed the neighborhood, talked to every door on Maple Drive, but no one had seen her. No one heard more than that single chilling scream. The trail went cold before it even began. For months, flyers fluttered on every lamppost. The Harper family appeared on local news begging for help. Emily's mother, Catherine, stared into the camera with that hollow look people get when they've seen the edge of their own grief. She didn't run away, she said. Something happened to her. Someone knows. Rumors spread. Some said Emily had a secret boyfriend. Others whispered about a man in a white pickup seen circling the block that morning. But the leads fizzled one after another. The police formed a task force. They collected fingerprints, hair samples, tire marks. Nothing matched. Every tip led to another dead end. And as the months turned into years, Clearwater forgot. By 1996, the Harper case was one of hundreds collecting dust in the sheriff's basement. One detective kept the file on his desk long after the department told him to close it. Detective Ray Connolly, a quiet man with a fading badge and eyes that had seen too much, refused to let it go. He visited the Harper house every year on the anniversary, left a single lily on the porch, and promised the mother he'd find out who took her daughter. But time has a way of erasing faces, blurring memories, making even justice feel like fiction. 2 decades later, Clearwater had changed. The houses were bigger, the trees taller, the neighbors different. Most of those who remembered Emily had moved away, except one. The man across the street, George Milner, a retired electrician, quiet, polite, always mowing his lawn before sunrise. He'd lived there since the early 80s alone after his wife died. The kind of man who waved from his driveway but never invited anyone in. For 30 years, he watched every family come and go, every new couple unpacking boxes, every child learning to ride a bike. And across the street, the Harper house still stood empty, now shuttered and silent. Sometimes at night, George would sit on his porch, a glass of bourbon in his hand, and look at that house for hours. In 2023, a new cold case unit was formed in the county using advanced DNA testing on evidence once thought useless. They reopened dozens of old files, including Emily Harper's. In the bottom of a sealed envelope, lab, technicians found a small piece of cloth collected from Emily's car door, overlooked for years, degraded but not gone. They ran it through the National DNA Database. The result came back a week later, a hit, partial, but strong enough to raise eyebrows. The name attached was unexpected George Milner. When detectives arrived on Maple Drive that July morning, almost exactly 30 years to the day Emily vanished, they didn't come with sirens or lights. They came quietly, parked 2 houses down, watched the man across the street water his lawn. He was 74 now, frail, gray, slow in movement. But when they approached, When they said the words Emily Harper, something flickered in his eyes, a flash of recognition, then something darker. They asked him if he remembered her. He nodded. Nice girl, he said softly, always smiled. They told him they'd found new evidence. His hand trembled slightly on the hose. That, so he murmured. They asked if they could search his property. He agreed, calmly, almost too calmly. Inside the house was immaculate. Everything in its place. Old furniture framed photos, faint smell of disinfectant. Nothing unusual until they reached the basement. It was sealed, padlocked. The key hung on a rusted nail beside the door. When they opened it, the air hit them stale cold, like the breath of something long buried. Down there, behind old boxes and tools, they found a trunk, heavy, metal. Inside, a floral dress, neatly folded, stained with something dark. Forensic testing later confirmed it Emily Harper's blood. The arrest shocked Clearwater. Reporters swarmed the quiet street that had slept for 3 decades. Neighbors couldn't believe it. George, they said, no way. He was everyone's grandpa, but beneath the calm smile and the trimmed hedges, a monster had been hiding in plain sight. Detectives pieced together the rest. Milner had offered Emily a ride that morning after pretending her car was overheating. She trusted him. He was the neighbor she'd known since childhood. He took her inside to make a phone call. She never left. In custody, Milner said little. When asked why, he just stared at the table and whispered, "She was too perfect. I couldn't let her go." But even after the confession, something didn't sit right. The timeline, the missing pieces. There were details only the killer could have known, and Milner seemed to know them too well. Some investigators believe he'd rehearsed that confession word for word long before they ever knocked on his door. When they dug beneath his basement floor, they found more jewelry. Small objects, each tagged and dated, other names, other girls. The discovery turned one cold case into 6. 30 years of silence shattered in a single day. Clearwater became the epicenter of a nightmare it thought was buried in the past. Families reopened wounds they'd long since learned to live with. And the Harper house, standing silent across the street from where evil had lived all along, became a shrine to everything that went unseen. Detective Connolly, long retired, visited the site one last time. He stood on the cracked driveway, staring at the yellow tape fluttering in the wind, and whispered, "You were right, Catherine. Someone did know." The story spread like wildfire. California cold case cracked after 30 years, but for those who lived it, it wasn't just a headline. It was a reminder that evil doesn't always come from the dark. Sometimes it waves from across the street. By the time the sun set over Clearwater that evening, every streetlight on Maple Drive flickered under the glare of television cameras. Satellite vans lined the cul-de-sac, reporters elbowing each other for the best shot of the old gray house behind the police tape. A town that hadn't made headlines in 3 decades was now on every channel in the country. The sign that once read, "Quiet neighborhood, drive slow," now hung crooked, half torn by the wind. Inside the precinct, the interrogation room buzzed with low tension. George Milner sat alone at the metal table, hands cuffed, head bowed, as the hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. Detective Laura Finch, the lead on the reopened cold case unit, watched him through the glass. She'd been 6 years old when Emily Harper vanished. She remembered her mother whispering about it while folding laundry, the name Harper Girl, like a ghost story parents told their kids not to wander off. And now, 30 years later, she was the one sitting across from the ghost. When she entered, Milner didn't lift his head. His voice came low, rasping. "You found the dress," he said before she even spoke. "Yes," Finch replied, her tone clipped but steady. "We did." He gave a small, almost satisfied nod. "Took you long enough." Finch leaned forward. "Why keep it?" Milner smiled faintly. Not a grin, not even mockery. Just a slow curl of his lips that sent a cold wave through the room. "Because I wanted to remember her. Everyone else forgot." The interview went on for hours. His story never changed. He met Emily by chance, offered to help things went too far, panic, cover-up. But Finch felt something off. He spoke without remorse, without fear. More like someone recounting a story that wasn't entirely his, a rehearsed version of events designed to sound believable, but hollow inside. When the DNA results came in, they confirmed his connection to the cloth and the trunk, but other evidence told a more complicated story. Milner's prints didn't appear anywhere else, not on the car, not in the Harper driveway, not on the old phone records. Nothing but that single piece of fabric, too clean, too precise. Meanwhile, the town spiraled into hysteria. Local news anchors replayed old footage of Emily's parents pleading for help, now juxtaposed with images of the stooped old man being led away in handcuffs. Social media erupted with outrage. How could no one have known? How could a killer live across the street for 30 years? Theories flooded in. Former neighbors recalled strange noises at night. A teenage boy once saw Milner burning something in his backyard in 1995. A mail carrier remembered the smell of bleach seeping from his garage. All the fragments came back sharper now, rearranging into a picture no one wanted to believe they'd ignored. But behind the noise, Finch kept digging. She pulled every file tied to Milner employment history, phone logs, property records. He'd lived in Clearwater since 1981, 2 years before Emily was born. No criminal record, no complaints, nothing that stood out. He fixed wiring for local businesses, paid his taxes, volunteered at the town fair, a model citizen on paper, and yet beneath that paper trail lay silence. The basement, however, told a different story. Among the boxes, forensics found objects too personal to be coincidence: a silver bracelet engraved TM, a high school locket with initials RL, a set of photographs showing faces no one could identify. Each trinket was cataloged, each name cross-referenced with missing persons reports. Within 2 weeks, detectives matched 3 of the items to unsolved disappearances between 1989 and 1997, all young women, all within 30 miles of Clearwater. What had started as one cold case was now a potential serial file. The press called him the silent neighbor. The name stuck. Reporters dug through every corner of his past. His wife's sudden death in 1991, ruled accidental after she fell down the stairs. The nephew who lived with him briefly and vanished after a family dispute. The unmarked patch of ground behind his shed where dogs refused to dig. But Milner didn't speak about any of that. When asked, he only said, "You wouldn't understand. Some people need to disappear." For Catherine Harper, Emily's mother, the news brought no peace. She sat in her living room, surrounded by fading photographs, her hands trembling as she held the dress, sealed now in an evidence bag. "I prayed for answers," she said in a soft voice, "but I didn't pray for this." Her words played on every network, her grief turned into a soundbite for a nation addicted to tragedy. Detective Finch knew the case wasn't over. Something about Milner's confession gnawed at her. He'd known details from the police reports that were never public. Things only investigators could have known. That meant someone had either told him or someone had helped him. She pulled the old case files again, the ones yellowed with time, and noticed something peculiar. One of the original officers who handled the evidence in 1994 had retired early, just months after Emily's disappearance. His name, Deputy Charles Chuck Latham. He'd been the first on the scene, the one who secured the car, the one who supposedly found the fabric sample. But his notes were sparse. Too sparse for a crime of that scale. She tracked him down in a nursing home 2 towns over. He was 83 now, frail but lucid. When she mentioned Emily Harper, his eyes flickered the way old light bulbs do before they go out. "You found her?" he asked weakly. "No," Finch said quietly, "but we found who took her." He nodded slowly. "George Milner." Finch froze. "You know him." Latham exhaled through his teeth. "We all did. He helped search the neighborhood that day, helped us carry boxes, said he wanted to help the family. I should have known then." "Known what?" He turned to her, his gaze cloudy but sharp. "That he wasn't looking for her. He was making sure we didn't find her." Latham's voice cracked as he confessed he'd always suspected Milner, but had no proof, and the department wanted the case closed. "No one cared about a missing girl from a quiet town," he muttered. "They wanted it buried." When Finch left the nursing home, dusk had settled. The weight of 30 years pressed on her shoulders like a physical thing. She knew Milner was guilty of something, but maybe not everything. The evidence was too tidy, too orchestrated. Someone had helped him clean up, someone who knew how investigations worked. Back at headquarters, as she pored over the timeline, she saw it, the one detail everyone missed. The trunk. The floral dress had been stored perfectly unwrinkled, preserved. Not the way a killer would keep a trophy hidden for decades, but the way an archivist might preserve a record. It wasn't a memento. It was proof, curated, placed deliberately for discovery. That realization hit her like a jolt. What if the trunk wasn't meant to be found then, but now? What if someone wanted Milner caught? She pulled the forensics report again, reading every line until her eyes blurred. Then she saw it. The lock on the trunk was new, manufactured in 2019. Someone had sealed it recently. She looked up, heart pounding. The DNA matched the confession, the discovery, all of it could have been orchestrated. The cold case hadn't just been cracked open, it had been staged. And as the night deepened over Clearwater, Finch realized the real question wasn't who killed Emily Harper, but who wanted the world to believe it was George Milner. Rain came without warning that night, a sudden heavy downpour that washed the streets of Clearwater clean, or at least tried to. The yellow tape fluttered in the wind as drops drummed against the Milner house, streaking down its gray siding like veins of rust. Inside the precinct, Detective Finch sat alone in the cold blue glow of her computer screen. The file in front of her wasn't about George Milner anymore. It was about the evidence that led to him and everything that didn't add up. The floral dress, the DNA hit the timing the brand new lock. Each piece was supposed to scream closure. Instead, they whispered, setup. She replayed the body cam footage from the search the moment officers descended into Milner's basement, their flashlights slicing through the dark. The trunk sat in plain sight, too visible, too cinematic. Not buried, not hidden, not covered in years of dust. It had been placed there. Recently. She leaned back, rubbing her eyes. The precinct was empty, except for the hum of vending machines and the faint echo of thunder outside. On the wall hung the old cold caseboard faces, frozen in time. Emily Harper's photo sat at the center, surrounded by red thread and fading notes. Finch stared at it, her pulse steady, but her mind racing. What if he didn't put it there? She whispered. She opened the evidence log again. The trunk had been cataloged at 9:47 a.m., the lock noted as aged, but Finch knew that model. It was sold at a hardware store chain that didn't even exist until 2018. She grabbed her coat and keys. The rain hadn't stopped when she pulled into Clearwater Hardware. The neon open sign flickered, reflected in the puddles. Inside, the young clerk looked up from his phone. Detective Finch, he asked nervously. The badge was enough to make anyone tense. She placed a photo of the lock on the counter. You sell this model. He squinted. Yeah, we started carrying it a few years ago, maybe 2019. It's a new series weatherproof latch, stainless steel. Why? Finch's jaw tightened. Do you keep receipts? He shrugged. Digital ones. We can look up transactions by card or date. She gave him a time frame June through July the past 3 months. Within minutes, the list printed from the Terminal 17 sales of that lock model. 4 paid in cash, 13 by card. She scanned each name until one froze her blood. Latham Charles. She stared at it, rainwater dripping from her hair onto the page. The same retired deputy, the first man on the original scene, the one who told her he'd always suspected Milner. She drove back through the storm wipers, thrashing against glass. Her mind replayed his words. He helped us search. He wanted to make sure we didn't find her. But what if Latham wasn't talking about Milner? What if he'd been talking about himself? By midnight, she was back at her desk, the hardware receipts spread before her. She pulled Latham's personnel file, retired early in '95, citing medical stress. But the real reason was buried deeper, an internal affairs note sealed under confidentiality. Finch forced it open through her clearance. The file revealed complaints of evidence mishandling improper chain of custody and one incident of unauthorized scene re-entry, the location, the Harper disappearance. The room felt colder. Finch turned to the window where lightning flashed over Clearwater's skyline. If Latham had returned to the scene, if he'd tampered with evidence, then the entire foundation of the Milner case was built on rot. And if he'd purchased that lock, it meant he had access to Milner's property, or someone who did. She called the nursing home. The nurse on duty answered with a tired voice. Sorry, detective, Mr. Latham isn't here. Finch's grip tightened. What do you mean? He checked out yesterday morning, said his son was taking him home. Does he have a son? The nurse hesitated. Not that I know of. Finch's pulse kicked into overdrive. She checked his address file, an old property on the outskirts of town, long since sold, but the transfer name made her heart stop again. The deed now belonged to George Milner's estate. Somewhere between those two men, one a killer, one a cop. The truth had been buried in the soil of Clearwater for 30 years. At dawn, the storm broke. Finch drove toward the old Milner property again, the light gray and hollow over the horizon. Patrol cars still surrounded the perimeter, but she slipped past the tape flashing her credentials. Inside, the air was heavier than she remembered. The basement remained sealed off now under forensic lockdown. The trunk was gone, replaced by chalk markings and evidence tags. Finch's eyes drifted to the corner, a faint outline on the concrete square and darker than the rest. She knelt, touched it. The cement there was newer, smoother. She called over the lead tech. You tested this section. He shook his head. Negative for anything significant. But it's definitely a patch job, probably within the last 5 years. She stood. Dig it up. An hour later, the ground cracked open beneath the jackhammer. Dust rose. The air turned bitter. Then a hollow sound. Metal hitting metal. When they pried it loose, another box surfaced. Smaller, older, rust-eaten. Inside lay a badge corroded but still legible. Deputy Charles Latham. Next to it, a revolver wrapped in plastic. And beneath that, a second set of photos. Emily Harper again, but different. Alive, sitting in a car, smiling at the camera. The timestamp July 15th, 1994. The day after she vanished. Finch felt her throat tighten. Oh my God. The images weren't police photos. They were surveillance taken through a windshield, like someone watching from another car. And in the reflection of one window, faint but visible, was a face. George Milner. She stepped back, heart pounding. The timeline didn't make sense. If Emily was alive after the supposed abduction, then someone had kept her hidden. Someone had used Milner, maybe even framed him. But then came the final photo in the envelope. Emily again, but this time lying on a wooden floor, eyes open, lifeless. A hand was visible on the edge of the frame, thick and wrinkled, gripping the hem of her dress. Finch zoomed in on the photo, the grainy texture making details hard to see, but one thing stood out. The hand bore a wedding band, gold. George Milner's wife had been buried wearing hers in 1991. So whose hand was that? Finch's pulse surged. The date, the sequence, the lock, the evidence, it was all wrong. The killer hadn't just been hiding for 30 years. He'd been rewriting the story from the beginning, controlling every piece of the puzzle to make sure the truth would never surface. As she stood in the cold light of the basement, thunder rumbling in the distance, Finch realized she was standing inside a crime scene that had been engineered like a trap. Someone had wanted her here. Someone wanted her to find this. And somewhere out there, whoever they were still watching. The sun barely rose that morning, a thin, ghostly glow through a sky the color of wet cement. Detective Finch hadn't slept. Her clothes still smelled of basement dust and rainwater. Her eyes red from hours of staring at those photographs. She laid them out again under the fluorescent light of the evidence room. Emily smiling in the car. Emily lying on the floor. The hand with the wedding band. The faint reflection of George Milner. And the badge belonging to Deputy Charles Latham. 2 men, 1 dead woman, and a timeline that refused to fit. She poured herself coffee that tasted like metal, opened her notebook, and started listing questions. Who took the photos? Why keep them hidden? Who sealed the trunk? Why now every answer led her back to the same phrase that kept ringing in her mind: someone wanted to control the story. By 9 a.m., the precinct was alive again. Phones ringing, printers, clattering, voices rising. The media storm hadn't calmed. If anything, it had grown louder. News anchors now speculated about a police cover-up. Was the silent neighbor framed? Was Clearwater's most trusted deputy part of something darker? The town that once prided itself on safety had turned into a headline factory. Captain Ruiz called Finch into his office. The blinds were half closed, sunlight slicing through the slats. He looked tired, older than yesterday. Laura, he said quietly, we need to manage this. The DA's office is panicking. They want the Milner file sealed pending review. Sealed, she snapped. We're sitting on proof of evidence, tampering, possibly murder, and they want to bury it again. Ruiz's gaze hardened. You're walking a thin line. Whatever you found in that basement, it connects people who've worn this badge. Be careful whose name you write down. Finch left without answering. She wasn't about to let another generation of silence take root. She drove straight to the county records office, a squat beige building with fluorescent lights that buzzed like flies. In the back archives, she dug through old property records, dispatch logs, and internal correspondence from 1994. For hours, the only sound was the crackle of paper and the slow click of the microfilm reader. Then she found an unsigned incident memo dated July 16, 1994, 2 days after Emily disappeared. Subject E. Harper. Witness relocated per internal directive. Temporary holding at the undisclosed site for evaluation. Finch's pulse spiked. Relocated. The word wasn't used in homicide investigations. It was used in protection programs or containment protocols. There was a signature block at the bottom, faded, smudged, but still legible enough to read 3 letters, CL, Charles Latham. If that memo was real, Emily hadn't been dead immediately. She'd been taken somewhere and someone had covered it up under the pretense of protection. Finch called her tech analyst Cooper, a lanky kid with jittery hands and a mind like a search engine. I need every digital record from '94 that mentions Harper or Latham. Files, tapes, logs, anything. An hour later, he appeared at her desk, eyes wide. You're not going to believe this. We found an old VHS archive labeled Community Outreach Clearwater PD. Guess who's in it? He hit play. The grainy footage showed a small press event in 1995, officers shaking hands, smiling for the camera. Latham stood near the podium, younger, confident, clapping. Behind him, half hidden by the crowd, was George Milner, wearing a maintenance uniform with a department patch. Finch froze the frame. He worked for the police. Cooper nodded. Part-time contractor, electrical maintenance, wiring phone lines. He had access to the precinct for years. It all clicked at once. The reason his name wasn't flagged in any criminal database, the reason he'd known details from the case that were never made public. He wasn't just a neighbor. He'd been inside the investigation. She replayed Latham's old confession in her head, his words from the nursing home, "He helped us search." That wasn't metaphor. It was literal. Finch's stomach tightened. Pull every personnel record connected to that outreach event. I want to know everyone who was in that room. The list came back 32 names. Most retired, some dead, a handful still in local government. One in particular stood out, Captain Harold Ruiz. Her captain. She stared at the name until her vision blurred. The coffee went cold in her hand. Ruiz had been a rookie sergeant, then fresh from patrol. His files showed he'd been transferred to Clearwater PD the same month Emily disappeared under Latham's supervision. She drove back to the precinct, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Ruiz was in his office tie, loosened phone to his ear. He looked up when she entered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Close the door," he said. She did. "You knew Milner worked for the department," she said, voice low. Ruiz sighed. "Yes. And you didn't think that mattered." He rubbed his temples. "You think you're the first to dig into this? You think you're the first to wonder why the Harper case was sealed for 3 decades? We tried to expose it once. Internal Affairs shut it down." "Who's we?" Ruiz's silence was answer enough. Finch leaned over his desk. "That memo, the one about Emily being relocated, was it true?" He hesitated. "Then she wasn't supposed to die?" The air seemed to freeze. "She witnessed something," Ruiz continued quietly. "A drug drop near the marina. One of our own was involved. Latham arranged for her to be held temporarily to keep her safe until they could clear things up. But something went wrong. She panicked. She tried to run. After that," he trailed off. The silence said the rest. "Milner," she pressed. Ruiz nodded. "He was the one who watched her. Latham trusted him. Said he was harmless. Said he'd keep her calm." Finch felt her pulse hammering in her throat. "So he killed her." Ruiz's eyes hardened. Or Latham did. Or both. "We never found out. The department buried it before anyone could. Said she was missing. Said there was no evidence. I was ordered to stand down." She stared at him, disbelief and fury boiling together. "You let him live across the street from her family for 30 years. He looked away. "You don't understand what Clearwater was back then. Small town, small minds. They wanted their peace back, even if it meant building it on lies. Finch took a slow breath, her voice shaking now. Someone reopened it. Someone planted that trunk. Why? Ruiz didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window, watching the storm clouds forming again over the horizon. Maybe guilt. Maybe control. Maybe someone wanted to rewrite the ending before they died. She stared at the back of his head. Latham. He nodded. If he bought that lock, he wanted us to find it. He wanted his version to be the one the world remembered. Milner as the monster, the town as innocent. Finch's phone buzzed a message from Cooper. You need to see this, now! She left without another word. In the lab, Cooper had the VHS paused on another frame. Look in the background, he said, right behind Milner. Finch leaned closer. Through the grain, through the blur, she saw a young woman at the edge of the frame. Shoulder-length hair, familiar eyes. Emily Harper. She wasn't missing yet. The date stamp on the footage read July 15th, 1994, the same day she was last seen alive. Finch felt the ground tilt under her feet. The official timeline was a lie from start to finish. Emily hadn't vanished from her car. She'd vanished from inside the Clearwater Police Department. Her voice was barely a whisper. They didn't lose her. They took her. The discovery hit like a gut punch. Emily Harper alive and inside the precinct the day she was supposed to have vanished. The footage was proof that the story everyone believed for 30 years was a carefully crafted lie. Finch stared at the frozen frame on the monitor until her reflection blurred into Emily's face. The hum of the computers, the rain tapping against the lab window, everything felt distant, unreal. She was there, Cooper whispered, his voice breaking the silence. In the building. We have the timestamp, the background ID. That's the old community hall back when it was used for officer briefings. Finch nodded slowly. And that means someone filmed her hours before she disappeared, while the department claimed she was already gone. The room felt colder. She reached for her phone, dialing Ruiz, but stopped midway. His voice, his hesitation, the way he'd looked at her when she mentioned reopening the file, it all felt wrong now. She closed the phone. Copy that tape, she told Cooper, and lock the original somewhere no one can touch it. By the time she left the lab, dusk was sliding across Clearwater like a slow bruise. The streets were empty, except for puddles reflecting orange streetlights. Finch parked near the waterfront, the same marina Ruiz had mentioned the supposed scene of the drug drop Emily might have witnessed. The docks creaked under her boots. The smell of salt and rot hung heavy. Somewhere in the distance, a gull cried like a warning. She walked until she reached the old boathouse boarded up, condemned years ago. The paint was peeling, but the faded sign still read, Property of Clearwater Police Marine Unit. Inside, her flashlight cut through the darkness. Cobwebs, rusted tools, a wooden table covered in dust. Then, on the far wall, something new, faint marks in the dust where something had recently been moved. She brushed her hand over it. A square outline, a hidden compartment. Finch pried it open with a crowbar. Inside was a small metal case wrapped in plastic. When she opened it, a smell of mildew and decay filled the air. Inside were 3 VHS tapes, each labeled in the same neat handwriting. July 15th, 1994, interview room 3. July 16th, 1994. Holding. July 17th, 1994. Final. Her breath caught. She picked one up. The label ink had smudged, but the word final was still legible. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Back at her car, she stared at the tapes on the passenger seat, rain hammering against the windshield. She knew what she had to do, but she also knew that once she pressed play, there would be no going back. At the precinct, Cooper had already set up the playback equipment in a closed lab room. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered, the static hissed. Finch loaded the first tape. The timestamp appeared July 15th, 1994, 2:14 p.m. The camera faced a small gray interview room. Emily sat at the table, hands clasped, eyes red from crying. Across from her, Deputy Charles Latham. His face was calm, almost kind. Emily, he said softly, no one's blaming you. We just need to know what you saw. She shook her head. I already told you. I didn't see anything. I just heard yelling by the docks. Then someone ran. I didn't. You saw an officer there, he interrupted gently. You saw a car. Whose car was it? She looked down. Yours, she whispered. Latham leaned back, exhaled slowly. All right. He turned toward the camera briefly as if acknowledging it, then leaned forward again. You understand, this is bigger than you, Emily. We need to keep you safe until this is over. The tape ended abruptly, their static swallowing the image. Finch sat frozen. Cooper stared at the blank screen. Jesus, he murmured. They loaded the second tape, July 16th, 1994, 2 p.m. Emily was in a small room now, pale, exhausted, wearing the same clothes, a blanket around her shoulders. Someone off camera spoke a man's voice, older, firmer. Finch recognized it instantly. Captain Harold Ruiz. She's getting restless, Ruiz's voice said. We can't keep her here much longer. The department's asking questions. Let me handle it, Latham replied. Emily looked up suddenly, her eyes filled with fear. Please, she said, her voice trembling. I just want to go home. Latham knelt beside her. You will, but not yet. He turned his head slightly, and for a split second, the camera caught something reflected in the glass of the door, a shadow behind him. A man standing in the hallway, tall, watching. Finch froze the frame, zoomed in. The face was blurry but unmistakable. George Milner. The screen flickered, then cut to static again. Cooper swallowed hard. He was there, in the building. Finch leaned forward. Play the last one. July 17th, 1994, 3:37 a.m. The camera angle had changed. Same room. The lighting, harsh fluorescent. Emily sat at the table again, but now she wasn't moving. Her head rested sideways on the surface, her hair covering her face. Latham stood in the corner, pacing. His hands shook. His shirt was stained. Then another figure stepped into frame, Milner. Calm, expressionless. He set something on the table, a glass of water. Then he leaned close to Latham and whispered something the camera's microphone barely caught. She was never supposed to wake up. Latham covered his face. God help us. The camera lingered for another minute before someone reached over and switched it off. The tape ejected itself with a soft click that sounded too loud in the silence that followed. Finch sat motionless, her throat dry. They drugged her, she whispered. They didn't mean to kill her, but when they did, they covered it up. Cooper shook his head slowly, and they've been hiding it ever since. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Finch's phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. She answered. A low male voice spoke, steady, calm, deliberate. Detective Finch, you found the tapes. Her blood ran cold. Who is this? You need to stop digging, the voice said. You don't know who you're dealing with. Who are you? Pause. Then the man who wrote the final report. The line went dead. Finch stared at the phone, her heart racing. The final report, that phrase, wasn't random. It was the title of the last missing document in the Harper file. The one that was supposedly lost in archive transfer years ago. She turned to Cooper. Trace that call. He typed furiously, lines of code flashing across the monitor. After a few seconds, he looked up. It was routed through a secure city line, internal network. Finch clenched her jaw, meaning it came from inside the precinct. Thunder rumbled outside, long and low. Somewhere deep in the building, the lights flickered. Someone else was still here. Someone who had been here all along. The hum of the fluorescent lights above her head turned sharp, almost electric, as if the whole building were holding its breath. Finch stayed perfectly still. Phone still in her hand, Cooper frozen beside her, both listening to the faint crackle of static that lingered long after the line went dead. Somewhere in the distance, a door clicked shut. Her instincts kicked in. Shut everything down, she said quietly. Cooper blinked. What? Now. Pull the plugs, kill the network, wipe the cache. They're in the system. He moved fast, yanking cords, killing power to the lab's terminals, one by one. The room fell into a half-dark silence, broken only by the rain tapping against the window. Finch slipped the VHS tapes into her bag, zipped it shut, and turned toward the door. They stepped into the hallway, empty. The glow from the emergency lights painted everything in dull red. The precinct felt hollow, as if everyone had left, but someone was still there. Footsteps echoed faintly from the stairwell, slow, deliberate. Finch gestured for Cooper to stay back, drew her sidearm, and moved down the corridor. Every step matched hers, mirrored in tempo and distance. The sound came from below the garage level. She pushed the door open quietly and descended. The air smelled of oil and rain. Somewhere a generator hummed. Shadows from the storm outside crawled across the concrete floor. Then she saw it, a silhouette at the far end of the garage standing beside an unmarked police cruiser. The figure turned and the overhead light caught his face. Captain Harold Ruiz. He didn't look surprised to see her. "You shouldn't be here, Laura," he said softly. Finch kept her gun steady. "You made the call." Ruiz smiled faintly, tiredly. "You really think I'd warn you if I wanted you dead?" "Then why?" He sighed, stepping closer, palms raised. "Because you're about to make the same mistake I did. You think the truth will set you free. It won't. It'll bury you." "Did you kill her?" Finch asked, voice sharp, the words bouncing off concrete. "No," Ruiz said. "But I helped cover it up. We all did. Latham Milner, me, the chief back then. We thought we were protecting the department, protecting the town. But what we really protected was rot." His words hung in the air like smoke. Finch lowered the gun slightly. "Then help me fix it." He looked at her for a long time, the stormlight flashing across his face. "You can't fix it. You can only survive it. The people behind this aren't cops anymore. They're something else now, politicians, developers, donors. Clearwater was their testing ground." "Testing for what?" Ruiz stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Control. They built this place to look perfect, clean, safe, quiet. But underneath it, everything's bought, even justice." Before Finch could answer, a gunshot split the air. Ruiz staggered back, a red bloom spreading across his chest. The sound echoed through the garage, sharp and hollow. Finch ducked behind a pillar gun, drawn, scanning the upper level. Another shot. Sparks exploded near her shoulder. She rolled, aimed toward the catwalk. A shadow moved, tall, deliberate, professional. Whoever it was, they weren't guessing. They knew the building. Ruiz collapsed against the cruiser, coughing, blood pooling at his feet. "Go!" he gasped. "Get out!" Finch crawled toward him, dragging his arm over her shoulder, half lifting, half pulling him behind cover. Who was that? He managed a weak grin. Internal affairs, or what's left of it. His eyes rolled back before he could say another word. Finch pressed her fingers to his neck. No pulse. Ruiz was gone. She forced herself to move. Heart pounding, she sprinted across the garage, ducking behind cars, every breath echoing in the metal hollow. Another shot rang out, shattering the driver's window of a nearby cruiser. Glass rained around her. She reached the stairwell door, slammed it open, and took the steps, 2 at a time. Upstairs, the power flickered again. The emergency lights blinked out. When she burst into the main hall, everything was dark. Only the faint glow of streetlight filtered through the rain-soaked windows. She turned toward the exit and froze. A figure stood blocking the doorway. For a moment, she thought it was Milner. The build was the same, tall, broad-shouldered, but as lightning flashed outside, she saw the face. Charles Latham. He shouldn't have been able to stand that straight. He shouldn't have been alive. But there he was, pale, trembling slightly, eyes sharp and cold. "Detective Finch," he said quietly, "you've made quite the mess." Her voice barely held steady. "You're supposed to be dead." He smiled faintly. "You can't kill a ghost." He took a step forward. "You found the tapes. Good. They were meant for you." Finch raised her gun again. "Why? Why now?" "Because stories need endings," he said simply. "And I was tired of everyone else writing mine." He kept coming closer, his shoes squeaking softly on the wet tile. "You killed her," Finch hissed. He tilted his head. "No. I saved her from what was coming. She saw something she shouldn't have, something that would have destroyed people who built this town. She was never supposed to die." Milner panicked. "I cleaned it up. By burying her. By keeping Clearwater alive." Finch shook her head. "You didn't save anyone. You just postponed the truth." He smiled again, soft, almost sad. "Maybe. But you've done worse. You brought it back." In the next instant, he raised his own gun. The flash lit the hallway white. The shot tore past her shoulder. Finch dropped, rolled, fired back. The muzzle flare illuminated his face, calm, unblinking. The second bullet hit his arm. He staggered, dropped. The weapon stumbled backward into the light spilling from the open door. Rain poured in. For a heartbeat, everything went silent except the thunder. Then Latham smiled through the pain. "You think you've won. You haven't even seen the real file." Before she could reach him, he stepped backward into the rain and disappeared into the storm. Finch ran outside, gun raised, scanning the street, but he was gone. Only the echo of his words remained swallowed by the thunder. Back inside, she slumped against the wall, soaked, shaking the VHS tape still in her bag, her only proof. Ruiz was dead. Latham was alive, and someone inside the department had tried to erase her too. She closed her eyes. The rain outside became a dull roar, steady and relentless, like a heartbeat she couldn't escape. Whatever this was, it wasn't about Emily Harper anymore. It was about every lie Clearwater had been built on and whoever was still desperate enough to keep it standing. The next morning, Clearwater woke to sirens and headlines. Captain dead in shootout internal affairs investigation underway. No mention of the tapes. No mention of Latham. No mention of the storm in the garage or the gunshots that had echoed through the precinct like thunder trapped in steel. The official report said suspect at large. The rest was silence. Detective Finch sat alone in a motel room 15 miles outside town, the curtains drawn tight, the walls humming faintly from passing trucks on the highway. She hadn't been home. She hadn't even gone to the hospital after the bullet had grazed her shoulder. The wound burned, but not as much as the thought of Ruiz's blood pooling on the concrete. On the table in front of her sat a laptop, a burner phone, and 3 VHS tapes, the only copy of the truth she had left. She'd spent the night digitizing them, watching frame by frame until the faces burned into her eyelids: Emily, Latham, Milner, Ruiz. The same circle of men who'd built the lie, kept it alive, and finally tried to bury her with it. She opened her notebook and wrote 2 words at the top of a fresh page: the real file. The phrase wouldn't leave her head. It was what Latham had said before vanishing into the rain. You haven't even seen the real file. She didn't know if it was a taunt or a clue, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number again. She hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, this time calm, low, professional. Detective Finch, my name is Mara Keene. I'm with the Sentinel. Finch frowned. The newspaper. Yes, you don't know me, but I think we know some of the same ghosts. What do you want? To help you make this story impossible to bury again. Finch's pulse quickened. How did you get this number? You gave it to me, the woman said. When you sent the tapes? Finch froze. I didn't send them. On the other end of the line, silence. Then someone did. And they used your name. Finch's stomach turned. She looked at the tapes on the table. She still had all 3, the ones she'd pulled from the boathouse. If copies existed, someone had made them long before she'd found them. When did they arrive? Finch asked. Yesterday afternoon. No return address. Just a note. What did it say? A pause, then the voice read it aloud. The truth doesn't live in evidence. It lives in the people who can't sleep without it. Finch felt a chill crawl up her spine. That handwriting, she recognized it. Tight, slanted, deliberate. It was Ruiz's. She took a breath. Where are the tapes now? They're safe, Mara said. But I'm not. If what's on them is real, someone's already cleaning house. I've had 2 unmarked cars outside my office all morning. Finch rubbed her forehead, her mind spinning. Listen, I need you to keep them offline. No uploads, no broadcasts. If they see daylight now, they'll vanish in the noise. You're planning something. I'm planning to end this. She hung up before the journalist could ask more. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant this time, more like memory than weather. She opened Ruiz's old personnel file, the one she'd pulled from his office before fleeing the precinct. Most of it was standard commendations, transfers, case reports, but at the very bottom, tucked into a plastic sleeve, was something she hadn't noticed before. A single folded sheet labeled Restricted Addendum File, #94717. The Harper file. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. Inside was a typed memo on yellowing paper stamped confidential. Subject: Containment Protocol, Operation Clearline. Summary witness E. Harper identified ongoing transactions between law enforcement officials and external contractors tied to Municipal Development Fund. Disclosure risk high. Containment initiated under authority of Chief Warren and Deputy Latham. Directive: Maintain subject custody for 72 hours pending transfer. Should subject become unstable, initiate alternate containment. Approved CL. Finch's breath caught. External contractors tied to Municipal Development Fund. Clearwater's pristine suburban facade, the clean streets, the perfect lawns, the sudden economic boom in the late 90s. It hadn't been a coincidence. It had been bought with silence. She scrolled through property databases, the digital glow painting her face blue. The same company name kept surfacing Harborline Infrastructure Group. Their signature was on nearly every major development project in town, including the police precinct itself. And the CEO, George Milner. Her pulse spiked. Milner hadn't just been a killer, he'd been a partner. The network, Latham mentioned the rot beneath the surface, it wasn't metaphorical. It was structural. Every building, every road, every revitalization project was part of the same web of money laundering that Emily had stumbled into 30 years ago. And now Finch knew why she'd been relocated. She slammed her notebook shut and started the car. The rain had started again soft at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers swept in rhythm with her heartbeat as she drove back toward town, following the only lead she had left. Harborline's old headquarters, an abandoned construction yard near the edge of the industrial district. The gate was rusted, the sign half torn, reading simply Harborline, building the future. She parked outside, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. The air smelled of rust and diesel. Inside the warehouse was cavernous, filled with crates and scaffolding. But in the center, under a broken skylight, sat a single metal filing cabinet, old and dented, its drawers labeled in fading ink, personnel, legal, incident, confidential. She pulled the last one open. Inside, water-stained folders, each with a name she didn't recognize except one. Harper Emily transcript. Her hands shook as she opened it. Dozens of pages, typed transcripts of the interview tapes word for word. But the final page wasn't a transcript. It was a summary report, signed not by Latham, not by Ruiz, by her own supervisor, Captain Harold Ruiz. Conclusion: subject deceased due to medical distress during containment. Cause of death: cardiac arrest following sedative overdose. Disposition: closed file. Disposal authorized by CL and HR witness. Classified as unviable. Finch stared at the signature, her pulse racing. The entire cover-up had been formalized, approved, filed, and buried inside a corporate warehouse. She dropped the pages, breathing hard. Then she noticed a faint red stamp on the corner of the document. File replaced. See master copy. The real file. She turned the drawer over papers, scattering across the floor, and there it was, a false panel. Behind it, wrapped in plastic, a second folder, thicker than the rest. She tore it open. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance stills, aerial shots, transcripts, and on top a letter addressed to Detective Laura Finch. Her name typed, dated 2 weeks ago. She read it once, then again, her eyes narrowing with every line. Detective Finch, if you've found this, then the circle is complete. The truth you're chasing isn't about Emily Harper, it's about the system that made her disappear. Harborline is not a company. It's an agreement between men who needed the illusion of safety more than justice. They built Clearwater to hide what came before it. Find the ledger. That's where the bodies are buried. CL, Charles Latham. Her fingers tightened around the page. The ledger, that was what he meant by the real file. She looked around the dark warehouse, her flashlight sweeping over walls of rusted filing cabinets. Somewhere among them, it waited. The last secret. The one that would finally show how deep the rot went and who was still feeding off it. Outside, thunder cracked again. Finch exhaled slowly, holstered her weapon, and stepped deeper into the shadows. The warehouse was silent, except for the rain drumming against the corrugated roof. Lightning flared through the cracked skylight, throwing jagged shapes across the concrete floor. Finch's flashlight beam cut through the dark like a blade, sweeping over crates, filing cabinets, and the faded outlines of Harborline's past, a company that had once built homes, roads, schools, and an entire illusion. Now it was nothing but ghosts. The letter in her pocket crinkled as she moved Latham's words, replaying in her head, find the ledger. That's where the bodies are buried. She checked every cabinet, legal, personnel, suppliers, dust everywhere. None labeled ledger. The deeper she went, the colder it got, the air thick with the smell of old paper and oil. Then, near the far wall, she noticed something off an electrical panel that didn't match the blueprints she'd seen in the records. The wiring was newer, the metal clean. She pressed her ear against it, a faint hum. She pried it open with her pocket knife. Behind the panel wasn't circuitry, just a small black keypad, numbers glowing faintly in the dark. A security lock? Her pulse quickened. She tried the obvious 071494, Emily Harper's disappearance date. Nothing. Then she tried Ruiz's badge number. Still nothing. Finally, she typed 30YEARS. The keypad blinked green. A soft click echoed from behind the wall. A hidden door slid open, releasing a breath of cold air from a chamber beyond. Finch stepped inside. It wasn't large, just a narrow concrete room with a single metal table in the center. On it sat an old leather-bound book thick with age and a small portable safe beside it. A single bulb flickered overhead, buzzing faintly. She approached the table. The cover of the book was unmarked, except for one word pressed into the leather ledger. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The first page was handwritten in precise, careful script. Names, dates, dollar amounts. She flipped through page after page of transactions, linking Harbor Line to government contracts, construction deals, and off-the-record payouts. Then came the second section, shorter entries, coded phrases. Relocation, containment. Witness neutralized. Each marked with a date and initials. She recognized them instantly. CLHRGM. Latham, Ruiz, Milner. They hadn't been outliers, they'd been following orders. Her eyes stopped on one final entry, dated August 2023. Containment failure. Subject LF status pending. Finch froze, her initials. The ledger had predicted her fate before she'd even known it existed. Her breath quickened. She backed away from the table, scanning the room. Cameras, small black embedded into the corners, watching. Recording. Someone knew she was here. She grabbed the ledger and the small safe, stuffed them into her bag, and turned for the exit, but a sound stopped her. The faint creak of a footstep behind her. She swung her flashlight around. A man stood at the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered face half hidden in the shadows. His voice came low, steady, almost kind. Detective Finch, Milner. He shouldn't have been free. He shouldn't have been alive. But he was there, older now, but his eyes the same, flat cold, unblinking. "You were supposed to stay out of this," he said quietly. "You're dead," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That's the idea." He stepped closer, light glinting off a pistol in his hand. "You think you found the truth. You found a truth, the one we left behind. You killed her," Finch said, her voice shaking. "You killed Emily Harper." Milner nodded once. She was never supposed to die. None of them were. They just needed to disappear long enough for the papers to clear, for the contracts to pass, for the town to look clean again. And Latham. Latham built the system. Ruiz protected it. I made sure it stayed quiet. Finch kept her distance, eyes flicking toward the exit. You used Harbor Line to hide the money, the bodies, all of it. He shrugged. Everyone got what they wanted. The politicians got their funding. The cops got their promotions. I got a new name. You lived across the street from her family for 30 years, she spat. That's what kept them safe, he said simply. As long as they had a ghost to blame, no one looked any further. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark white for a split second. When it faded, he was closer. You should have left it buried, detective. You still can. She steadied her voice. And if I don't, he tilted his head, then your name becomes the next entry. Finch moved before he finished the sentence. The flashlight hit the floor, plunging the room into darkness. She dove behind the table as a shot cracked through the air, the bullet shattering the light bulb above. The darkness went absolute. Another shot. Sparks from the concrete. She rolled, fired blindly toward the sound, the flash illuminating his silhouette. He ducked, cursed, fired again. The shot grazed her arm. She fell. Pain flaring white hot, but she kept crawling toward the doorway, clutching the ledger tight against her chest. She kicked the keypad panel, slamming the hidden door shut between them. Metal screeched. The lock clicked. Behind it, she heard Milner's voice, muffled but calm. It doesn't matter, detective. You can't kill what's already history. She didn't wait to answer. She ran. Back through the warehouse, through the rain, through the dark, until her lungs burned and the city lights shimmered faintly in the distance. She didn't stop until she reached her car. Her hands shook as she started the engine. The bag sat on the passenger seat, soaked with rain. Inside it, the ledger heavy, silent, and alive with everything the town had tried to forget. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror, pale, trembling, eyes hollow. The initials LF burned in her mind. Containment failure. They'd been watching her from the start. Every move she made, every lead she followed, it had all been anticipated, planned for documented. Lightning flashed again, reflecting off the wet windshield, and for just a moment she thought she saw a figure in the mirror standing under a streetlight, still silent, watching. Then it was gone. She turned the wheel tires, slicing through water, heading toward the only person who could help her make this story impossible to erase. Mara Keene. The journalist had the tapes. Finch had the ledger. Together, they had the truth. But as she drove into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the truth wasn't what she thought it was anymore. Because if Harborline wasn't just a company, then maybe Clearwater wasn't just a town. Maybe it was a blueprint. The road into the city shimmered under the rain neon lights bleeding across puddles like smeared blood. Finch hadn't slept in nearly 36 hours. Her thoughts ran faster than the wipers could clear the windshield. Behind her, the storm followed thunder rolling low and slow like something hunting her. Mara Keene lived downtown in an apartment wedged above an old newspaper building that still smelled of ink and cigarettes. The Sentinel sign flickered half dead, one bulb sputtering in the dark. Finch parked 2 blocks away, double-checked the locks, grabbed the bag, and sprinted through the rain. By the time Mara opened the door, Finch was drenched. The journalist looked even more exhausted than Finch remembered from the call, mid-30s. Dark hair in a loose bun, eyes sharp but rimmed red from sleepless nights. The faint blue glow of monitors filled the apartment screens, playing paused news clips and files stacked knee-high. Mara stepped aside without a word. Finch entered. On the desk, the 3 digitized VHS tapes were cued on a single screen, paused mid-frame on Emily Harper's face. Finch set the soaked leather ledger beside them. That Finch said catching her breath is what they were protecting. Mara glanced at it, then at Finch. And what exactly is that? Their entire system, Finch said, opening the cover, revealing the pages of names, initials, payments, and directives. Harborline wasn't a company. It was a laundering machine built out of municipal projects and falsified police budgets. Emily found one of the transfers, one that linked the department directly to Harborline's offshore accounts. That's why they took her. Mara scrolled through the files on her computer. We've traced similar shell companies tied to Harborline. Same board members, different city names, Glendale, Auburn, Crestview, Lakehurst. They all got massive funding boosts in the 90s, all with identical community development charters. Finch frowned. Blueprint towns. Exactly, Mara said. Same layout, same leadership model, same kind of police department grants, every single one connected to a holding firm in Sacramento called Orion Equity Group. Guess who their legal counsel was? Finch stared at her. Latham. Mara nodded. Before he retired. He incorporated half these front companies himself. He didn't just build the Clearwater system, he franchised it. Finch sank into the chair, the room spinning. The scale of it hit her like a physical weight. How many people disappeared? Mara clicked open another file. Rows of names filled the screen. 73 confirmed, possibly more. Mostly witnesses, whistleblowers, small-time employees who noticed inconsistencies in municipal budgets, no records of death, just missing. Finch felt her chest tighten, and every case marked as cold. Mara met her gaze. Every one. Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the walls for a brief second. When the room darkened again, Finch swore she saw a shadow move behind the frosted glass of the apartment door. She tensed, hand instinctively reaching for her gun. Mara noticed. You expecting company? No, Finch said quietly. They both stared at the door. Nothing. Just the sound of rain and the distant rumble of traffic. Mara exhaled slowly. I uploaded part of the tapes to an encrypted server, she said, breaking the silence. Multiple backups, multiple regions. Even if they kill me, it's out there now. Not yet, Finch said sharply. If it goes live now, they'll flood it with disinformation. They'll spin it into a conspiracy. We need the ledger decoded, cross-referenced, verified. We drop it when there's nowhere left for them to hide. Mara smirked faintly. You sound like a journalist. I sound like someone who's running out of time. Mara leaned closer, flipping through the ledger's pages. See here, these aren't just payments. They're coordinates. Look, she pointed to a line that read Operation 7B Containment Revision 36.74 minus 119.78. GPS markers, Finch murmured. Exactly. And if I'm right, those are construction sites, places Harborline built before Clearwater, before the model was perfected. Finch pulled out her phone, entered the coordinates. A map appeared an abandoned town north of Fresno, deserted since 1993 after a chemical storage fire. Lakehurst, Finch said. Mara nodded, their first experiment. They sat in silence, the enormity of it filling the room. Then quietly, Finch said they killed a girl to hide a prototype. Mara looked up. No, they killed a girl to perfect it. A sudden noise shattered the moment, a pop sharp and close. Then the lights went out. "Get down!" Finch hissed, diving for cover as the window behind them exploded inward. Glass showered the room. A bullet slammed into the wall where Mara had been standing seconds earlier. They crawled towards the back hallway, the only exit besides the blown-out window. Finch drew her gun eyes, scanning the flickering glow of the monitors. Who the hell Mara began, but Finch cut her off. They found us. More shots. One struck the computer tower, sparks flying. Finch returned fire through the shattered window. Two controlled bursts into the night. No movement outside, just the wind howling through the broken frame. Mara clutched her arm, cut by glass but not hit. They want the ledger. Finch grabbed the book, stuffed it back into her bag. They can't have it. They bolted through the hallway. The emergency exit led to a narrow stairwell that smelled of mildew. Their footsteps echoed down concrete steps until they burst into an alley slick with rain. A black SUV idled at the corner, headlights off. The driver's window rolled down just enough to reveal the glint of a gun barrel. Finch fired first. The windshield cracked. The SUV roared to life, tires screeching as it reversed down the alley and vanished into the night. Mara leaned against the wall, breathing hard. They're not trying to kill us yet. They're trying to scare us, Finch said. Drive us into the open. They don't want bodies. They want silence. Mara wiped blood from her sleeve. Then we don't give them silence. Finch looked at her, rain dripping from her hair, her face pale but defiant. You really think one story can take them down? Not one story, Mara said, but one spark. Finch thought of Emily, her face on the tape, her voice trembling as she said, I just want to go home. She nodded slowly. Then let's burn it down. They made it to Finch's car and sped toward the outskirts of town. Behind them, police sirens began to wail, but none of them were coming to help. Finch turned off the headlights, cutting through back roads until they reached the county line. By dawn, they were miles away, parked on a bluff overlooking the ocean. The rain had stopped, replaced by fog rolling in from the water. Mara sat on the hood, staring at the waves. You know they'll come after us. They already have, Finch said, but if we do this right, it won't matter. She opened the ledger one last time. The last page had no writing, just a printed photograph glued to the paper. Aerial view. Another down. Perfect grid layout. White houses, clean streets, a playground, a police station identical to Clearwater's. Below it, in black ink. Project Clearline Phase 2, activated 2025. Finch felt the air leave her lungs. They're already building the next one, she whispered. Mara stared at the image, her voice barely audible. How do you stop something that's already everywhere? Finch closed the ledger and looked toward the fog-shrouded horizon. By making sure the whole world sees it before they can hide it again. She turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. The storm was gone, but something worse was coming. The reckoning. Fog swallowed the coastline as the engine hummed beneath them. Finch drove fast, headlights off the road, a thin ribbon of gray threading through the cliffs. Mara sat beside her, clutching the ledger like it was a heartbeat. Neither spoke. Every radio frequency they tried hissed static. The silence pressed down like a second storm. When they finally reached the safe house, a shuttered ranger cabin near the edge of Redwood County, it was still dark. The kind of dark that felt deliberate. Finch checked the perimeter twice before unlocking the door. Inside, dust-old furniture, the faint smell of salt and pine. She'd used this place years ago on surveillance jobs. No address, no neighbors. Perfect for disappearing. They dropped their soaked coats by the fire pit. Mara set up her laptop on the old wooden table, a portable modem blinking faintly beside it. Finch watched from the window eyes on the narrow road winding down the hill. 2 hours, Mara said, fingers flying over the keys. That's how long it'll take to push everything to the dead man servers. Ledger scans, video files, names, coordinates. Once it's up, even if they burn us, it's out there forever. Finch nodded, though her gaze stayed on the glass. They won't give us 2 hours. Then we make them believe they already lost. Mara's tone was steady, but Finch heard the tremor underneath, the kind that comes when adrenaline has replaced fear for too long. The fireplace crackled weakly as Finch crouched beside it, feeding it dry wood. Her mind replayed the last 24 hours like static Ruiz, bleeding out Latham's vanishing act, Milner's voice whispering in the dark. You can't kill what's already history. She looked over her shoulder. How long until the ledger's decrypted? Depends, Mara said, not looking up. These aren't just numbers. They're strings of coordinates, dates, initials. Someone tried to bury them in layers of dummy accounting data. I can crack it, but... But what? Mara hesitated. Some of the newer entries aren't written by Latham or Ruiz. They're by someone else. Someone still active. Finch frowned. Who? Mara turned the screen toward her. See this signature, 3 initials. CWE. Finch's pulse stuttered. Clearwater Enforcement Division. Mara nodded. Someone's still maintaining the operation. Still moving money. Still paying off containment projects. Finch rubbed her temples. So Harborline didn't die. It evolved. Outside, a distant rumble and engine. Finch's head snapped toward the window. Through the fog, faint lights climbed the hill. Visitors, Mara whispered. Finch killed the lantern. Get the drives. Move. They grabbed the equipment, the firelight dying to embers as headlights pierced the mist. A black SUV rolled to a stop, outside tires crunching gravel. Then another. Finch crouched by the window, weapon drawn. 2 figures stepped out, men in tactical coats, faces hidden. She recognized the posture instantly. Not cops, private, the kind that didn't leave paperwork. Mara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Almost done. The front door exploded inward. Wood splintered. A flashbang rolled across the floor. The world went white. Finch dove behind the table, ears ringing, eyes burning. She fired twice blindly toward the doorway. One of the figures ducked, shouting orders. Alive if possible. Another burst of light, another crash. The cabin filled with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. Mara screamed as her laptop toppled, sparks spitting from the damaged modem. Finch crawled through the haze, grabbed Mara by the arm. Back door go. They stumbled into the trees. Boots sinking in mud fog, thick as cloth. Behind them, flashlights sliced through the dark. Split up, Finch hissed. Not a chance, Mara shot back. They ran together down a narrow trail that curved toward the cliffs. The roar of the ocean grew louder, closer, wild. Bullets snapped through branches. One grazed Finch's shoulder, hot pain blooming. They dove behind a fallen tree. Mara clutched the hard drive to her chest, breathing hard. They're not going to stop. Finch looked at her, mud on her face, blood on her sleeve, but her eyes fierce. Then neither do we. They waited until the voices faded, until only the waves remained. Then Finch pointed toward a narrow service tunnel cutting into the cliffside. That leads to the old communications bunker. It's sealed, but I can force it. Will it get us out? No, Finch said. It'll get us seen. Inside, the tunnel smelled of rust and seawater. Finch forced open the door, the metal groaning like a wounded animal. The bunker was small, bare walls, one dead console cables dangling like veins, but the satellite dish on the roof was still intact, tilted toward the gray dawn. Mara dropped to the console, connecting the salvaged modem, her fingers trembling as she rewired the port. Sparks flew. The monitor flickered to life, green text blinking across black. Signal, Finch asked. Barely, but enough. Outside engines revved again. Voices shouted orders. Do it, Finch said. Mara hit enter. Data streamed across the screen, page after page, uploading a storm of text and images. The ledger, the tapes, the transcripts, everything. They'll trace it, Mara warned. Then make it fast. The first bullets hit the metal door, echoing like thunder through the chamber. Finch fired back through the narrow gap, forcing them to stay low. A second SUV screeched to a stop outside. Boots pounded against concrete. How much longer? 30 seconds, maybe less. The lights flickered. One of the monitors blew smoke, filling the room. Mara coughed, still typing. Finch reloaded, counting the rounds. 4 left. Then a voice cut through the chaos, smooth, calm, familiar. Detective Finch. She froze. The figure stepped through the smoke gun, raised eyes cold. Charles Latham. He looked older than the last time she saw him, blood seeping through a bandage at his arm, but his voice was steady, almost gentle. You've done well. You brought it all back. Finch aimed at his chest. You're late to your own funeral. He smiled faintly. You still don't understand. None of this was about Emily Harper. She was just the first to see what they were building. The containment wasn't for her, it was for everyone. Behind him, the others waited, armed, silent. Mara's fingers flew faster. 10 seconds, she shouted. Latham stepped closer. You can't stop it, Laura. The blueprint's already copied, funded, approved. Clearwater was one model. There are dozens now, and you just gave them the publicity they needed. Finch fired. The shot caught his shoulder, spinning him backward. The men behind him opened fire. Bullets tore through the metal sparks, exploding. Mara slammed the final key. Upload complete. The signal light turned solid green. Where did you send it? Finch shouted over the gunfire. Everywhere. Finch grabbed Mara's wrist and pulled her toward the back exit. They dove into the sea tunnel as the bunker erupted in flame behind them, the fireball lighting up the cliffs like sunrise. They hit the sand hard, choking on smoke. Above them, sirens wailed from the burning hill. The sky turned gray, then gold. Finch looked at Mara, both of them bleeding, shaking alive. It's out now, Mara said, half laughing, half crying. The whole world's going to see. Finch nodded, staring at the ocean. Then it's their turn to choose what they believe. But deep inside, she knew the truth. Once something becomes history, it can never truly be erased, only rewritten by whoever survives to tell it. And as the first news alerts began to spread across the world, leaked files exposed nationwide cover-up, cold case connected to police development scandal, Detective Laura Finch finally closed her eyes. The story was no longer hers. It belonged to everyone. The story broke before sunrise. Every television flickered to the same headline. Every phone lit up with the same words. Clearline files leaked, nationwide network exposed. By the time the sun rose over the California coast, Clearwater was no longer a town, it was a crime scene. Police cruisers lined Maple Drive. Reporters filled the streets that had once been silent. The same pastel houses, the same white fences, now framed by camera crews and crime tape. 30 years of whispers had finally turned into a roar. Inside a motel off Highway 17, Detective Laura Finch watched the news in silence. Her arm was bandaged, her face bruised, but her eyes burned steady. The room smelled of salt and burnt coffee. On-screen news anchors shouted over each other, piecing together fragments of the leak, the ledger, the tapes, the names. Government officials denied involvement. The state attorney general promised an investigation. Harborline Infrastructure Group shut down its website within hours. But the damage was done. Every buried secret, every cold case, every disappearance once dismissed as rumor had been dragged into daylight. Mara Keene sat on the bed across from her phone, buzzing nonstop. "We're trending in 12 countries," she said, her voice trembling between awe and exhaustion. They can't contain it. Every outlet wants an interview. The governor just called Clearwater a failure of the system. That's one way to put it. Finch didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the screen where drone footage showed the wreckage of the bunker still smoldering by the cliffs. Beneath it, the headline scrolled, "Former detective and journalist suspected in data leak. Warrants issued." She smiled bitterly. "There's the spin." Mara sighed. "We knew it was coming." "They'll call us traitors," Finch murmured, "until someone else becomes useful to blame." Mara looked at her. "You don't regret it, do you?" Finch shook her head. "Regret doesn't change history. Truth does." She stood, walked to the window. Outside, the highway shimmered in the heat. Endless cars heading toward Clearwater, the curious, the angry, the lost. The whole country was descending on the town that had built its peace on bones. Behind her, Mara's phone buzzed again, this time a private number. She frowned. "Hello." Static. Then a man's voice, faint, broken by interference. "Mara Keene." "Who is this?" The voice crackled. "I worked for Harborline, Fresno Division. I have something you need to see." Finch turned. The man continued, voice trembling. "There's another site, not in California. They moved it years ago after Clearwater. The real Clearline facility. That's where they kept her." Mara's eyes widened. "Who?" The line hissed. Then the answer came, barely audible. "Emily Harper." The call went dead. The silence that followed was deafening. Finch felt the world tilt under her feet. "That's impossible," she whispered. "We saw the tape. We saw her body." "Maybe not all of it," Mara said softly. "Maybe that's what they wanted you to see." Finch grabbed the phone. "Trace it." Mara nodded. typing fast. The signal jumped across networks rerouted through proxies until it stabilized on a single location. Finch leaned closer. The coordinates blinked on the screen: Nevada Desert Zone 14B, a decommissioned federal research site, officially closed in 1996. Finch exhaled slowly. Of course. Mara looked at her. If she's alive? She's not, Finch said, but someone's keeping her name alive for a reason. She stared out the window again. Beyond the horizon, the sun was bleeding into gold, the kind of morning that made everything look almost clean. That evening, the world kept burning. Social feeds exploded with theories, protests, denials. Dozens of mayors resigned. 4 senators announced temporary leaves. Anonymous sources leaked even more contracts, payments, memos. Harborline wasn't just a company. It was a template. Containment towns had been built across the country, each one designed to absorb corruption, recycle silence, and erase evidence under the guise of redevelopment. Clearwater was only the first. By midnight, the leaks reached Europe. Journalists in London and Berlin uncovered identical projects under different names: Clearpath Whitehaven, Project Lysandra. The pattern was unmistakable. And somewhere in that storm of exposure, Finch and Mara vanished. The FBI claimed they fled the state. Others said they'd been taken into custody under sealed warrants. Some insisted they were dead, that the bunker explosion had killed them both. But a week later, a short anonymous video surfaced online, 90 seconds long, shot on a phone, shaky but clear. The camera faced the ocean at dawn. A woman's voice spoke softly behind it, steady, measured, unmistakable. The truth was never buried. It was built into the foundation. Every street, every home, every school, they all stand on what we refuse to see. You can't clean corruption. You can only expose it and watch what grows in the light. Then silence. The camera panned down briefly, catching the corner of a leather-bound ledger before the feed cut to black. No one ever confirmed who uploaded it, but millions watched. Within months, Harborline's executives were indicted. Latham's body was found near the Nevada border, an apparent suicide. Milner's DNA was identified among the debris of the bunker. Ruiz's name was cleared posthumously. And yet something lingered. 6 months later, a construction crew in Nevada uncovered an underground chamber beneath the Zone 14B site. Inside were dozens of sealed crates stamped with the Harborline logo. Each contained files, audio tapes, documents, and surveillance photos. On the first tape, a young woman's voice whispered through the static. "If anyone finds this, my name is Emily Harper. I'm not dead. I'm still here." The world stopped for a heartbeat. The FBI denied its authenticity. Experts called it a deepfake. But those who'd followed the Clearline leaks knew better. Because just before the tape ended, a second voice came through, older, trembling, unmistakably human. "Don't look for me. Look for them." Finch closed her eyes when she heard it. She was in hiding by then, somewhere far from the coast, living under a borrowed name. But that voice, she knew it like her own heartbeat. Emily Harper had become more than a victim. She was now a symbol, a myth, a warning, the kind that outlives its killers. That night, Finch sat by the sea and wrote a single line in her notebook, the same notebook that began with "the real file." Cold cases never die. They just wait for the right pair of eyes to open. She looked out at the dark horizon where the ocean met the sky. In the distance, a faint light blinked once, twice, like a signal. Then it was gone. Somewhere out there, the system still breathed. But now the world was watching. And the silence that had protected it for 30 years was finally over.